Take those handcuffs off him. Right now. Sergeant Rebecca Hayes's voice cut through the rain with enough force to silence everyone on the roadside. Officer Derek Walsh turned slowly, one hand still resting near Marcus Coleman's shoulder as red and blue lights swept across the wet pavement. Behind them, a black SUV sat tilted against a damaged guardrail, its hazard lights blinking through the storm. Inside, 9-year-old Sophie Coleman struggled to keep her breathing steady while her mother pressed close to the window, speaking to her in a calm voice that barely concealed her fear. Derek stared at Rebecca as though she had interrupted an ordinary traffic stop. He ignored a direct order, he said. He interfered with an active investigation. Rebecca did not look at the paperwork in his hand. She did not look at the open patrol car door or the rainwater running from the edge of his uniform. Her eyes stayed fixed on Marcus. For one suspended second, the entire scene seemed to hold its breath. Then she stepped closer. I said remove them. Derek's expression hardened. He glanced at Marcus, a 47-year-old black man standing quietly beside the patrol car, his soaked dress shirt clinging to his shoulders, his face controlled despite the sound of his daughter calling for him from 20 feet away. Derek had spent the last several minutes treating Marcus like a problem to contain. He had questioned the ownership of the SUV, dismissed the family's account of the crash, and delayed the emergency response while demanding answers that had nothing to do with the frightened child trapped inside the vehicle. Now he looked almost offended that another officer would challenge him. Sergeant, with respect, you just arrived. You don't know what happened here. Rebecca's gaze shifted toward the SUV, then to Angela Coleman standing beside it with one hand pressed against the glass. 16-year-old Tyler Coleman held his phone at chest level, the camera still recording. Rain moved down his face, but he did not lower the device. He had captured every question, every delay, and every moment Derek chose suspicion over service. Rebecca looked back at Derek. I know exactly who that man is. Derek gave a humorless laugh. Then maybe you can explain why he thinks he can tell me how to do my job. Marcus finally spoke, his voice low and steady. My daughter needs help. That is the only thing that matters right now. There was no threat in his tone, no attempt to display authority. Only the restrained urgency of a father listening to his child fight through fear while the people sworn to protect her argued beside the road. Rebecca moved close enough that Derek could see the disbelief in her eyes. Officer Walsh, she said, carefully emphasizing every word. The man you detained is Marcus Coleman. Derek waited, clearly expecting the name to mean nothing. Rebecca continued. He is the new police commissioner of Ashford. Your new commissioner. The color drained from Derek's face. His eyes moved from Rebecca to Marcus, then toward a rain-soaked envelope lying near the rear tire of the patrol car. The city seal was still visible across the front. For the first time that night, Derek had nothing to say. Marcus did not celebrate the silence. He did not demand an apology. He turned toward the damaged SUV and gave his first order as the highest-ranking law enforcement official at the scene. Help my daughter. 47 minutes earlier, Derek Walsh had believed the Coleman family had no power, no influence, and no one who would question his choices. What he did not yet understand was that Marcus had noticed everything, from the missing emergency call to the moment Derek switched off his body camera, and the truth waiting inside Tyler's phone was about to expose something far larger than one officer's prejudice. 47 minutes earlier, Marcus Coleman guided the family SUV beneath the glowing welcome sign at the edge of Ashford, while a steady spring rain softened the city lights ahead. From the passenger seat, Angela watched unfamiliar neighborhoods pass beyond the glass, rows of brick homes, corner diners, gas stations, and quiet storefronts closing for the night. Tyler sat behind her with his phone raised, recording pieces of the trip for a family video, while Sophie leaned against the window and counted patrol cars as they passed. To the children, this was simply the beginning of another move. Marcus had told them that his new position involved helping the police department improve, but he had kept the official title quiet. He did not want their first night in Ashford to feel like a public event filled with cameras, escorts, and handshakes. He wanted dinner with his family, a drive through the city, and one final evening in which he could listen without everyone recognizing his name. Earlier that afternoon, the mayor had offered to send a department vehicle to meet them at the county line. Marcus had declined. The decision now sat inside his jacket pocket in the form of a sealed appointment letter, its city emblem pressed into thick cream-colored paper. Angela glanced toward him as another message appeared on the dashboard screen. "That is the third time the mayor has checked on us," she said. Marcus smiled without taking his eyes from the road. "He wants to make sure I arrive before the ceremony. And you want to make sure you arrive like everyone else." Marcus nodded. "Reports tell you what people want leadership to see. Streets tell you what people actually live with." Angela studied him for a moment. She understood the reason beneath his calm words. Marcus had spent more than 20 years in law enforcement, moving from patrol officer to investigator, then into department oversight and reform. He had learned that uniforms changed behavior. Titles changed it even faster. People became more careful when they knew the person watching could affect their career. Tonight, he wanted to see Ashford without that shield. Sophie leaned forward between the front seats. "Is your new job going to make the city safer?" Marcus looked at her in the mirror. "That is what I am going to work for." "For everybody?" she asked. "Especially everybody," he replied. Tyler lowered his phone. "That sounds like something you practice for tomorrow." Angela laughed softly, and even Marcus allowed himself a brief grin. For several miles, the mood inside the SUV remained warm. They discussed schools, the new house, and the diner Angela had found online that claimed to serve the best apple pie in the county. Then, Marcus noticed a black pickup truck weaving between lanes about 100 yards ahead. It moved too quickly for the wet road, drifting near the center line before cutting sharply in front of a small sedan. The sedan swerved toward the shoulder. Marcus immediately eased off the accelerator. "Tyler, stop recording the family and point your phone forward," he said. His voice had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by the measured focus Angela knew well. Tyler raised the phone toward the windshield. The pickup accelerated through a yellow light, its rear plate briefly visible beneath the street lamps. Marcus reached for the hands-free controls. "Call emergency services," he said. "That driver is going to hurt someone." None of them knew the truck would circle back within minutes, or that the officer sent to answer their call would be far more interested in protecting its driver than helping the family who had reported it. The emergency dispatcher answered on the second ring, her voice calm beneath the soft electronic hum of the SUV speakers. Marcus gave their location, described the black pickup truck, and repeated the final 4 characters Tyler had managed to capture on his phone. Ahead, the pickup disappeared beyond a curve lined with dark storefronts and rain-polished trees. For a moment, the road seemed quiet again. Angela released a breath she had been holding and turned toward the children. "Everyone keep your seatbelts on," she said. Tyler continued filming through the windshield, his hands steadier than his expression. Sophie sat upright now, no longer counting police cars, her eyes fixed on the empty road behind them. Marcus told the dispatcher that the driver had nearly forced another vehicle onto the shoulder and appeared unable or unwilling to stay within the lane. The dispatcher confirmed that a patrol unit would be notified. Marcus thanked her, ended the call, and reduced the SUV to 35 miles per hour. "We did what we could," Angela said. Marcus nodded, but his attention remained on the mirrors. Years of police work had taught him that dangerous situations rarely announced when they were finished. They simply became quiet long enough for people to lower their guard. The rain intensified, tapping against the roof in a steady rhythm. Streetlights stretched into pale lines across the windshield. Tyler lowered his phone for only a second. Then Sophie pointed toward the rear window. "Dad, is that the same truck?" Marcus checked the mirror. 2 bright headlights appeared behind them, growing larger with alarming speed. The black pickup moved into the opposite lane, pulled alongside the family SUV, then dropped back without passing. Marcus felt the change in the air before anyone spoke. Angela turned in her seat and saw the dark shape following them less than 2 car lengths away. "Do not react," Marcus said. "Tyler, keep recording." "Angela, call emergency services again." The pickup moved closer. Its headlights filled the mirrors. Marcus kept both hands on the wheel and searched for a safe place to pull over, but the road narrowed between a drainage ditch and a steel guardrail. The dispatcher answered as Angela explained that the vehicle they had reported was now following them. Then the pickup surged forward. Marcus saw it approaching from the left and made a careful adjustment to create space. The SUV crossed onto the wet shoulder. The tires lost traction. For one suspended moment, the vehicle seemed almost weightless. Then it slid down the shallow embankment and came to rest against the guardrail with a deep metallic groan. The cabin fell silent except for the rain and the clicking hazard lights. Marcus checked Angela first, then looked toward the back seat. Tyler was frightened but alert. Sophie, however, was trapped by a twisted seat belt that had locked tightly across her coat. "I cannot move," she whispered. Angela reached back, speaking softly as she tried to loosen the belt. Marcus tested his door, but the slope pressed it against the guardrail. He climbed carefully across the center console and stepped out through the passenger side. Cold rain struck his face as he moved around the SUV, calling to Sophie through the rear window. The pickup had vanished. No brake lights. No hesitation. Only darkness where it had been. Tyler raised his phone toward the road. "I recorded it," he said, his voice trembling. "I recorded the plate." Marcus looked toward the highway as distant red and blue lights appeared beyond the curve. Relief moved through him for one brief second. Help was coming. What he could not know was that Officer Derek Walsh had already received a private call about the black pickup, and by the time his patrol car reached the scene, he had decided which story he intended to believe. Officer Derek Walsh stopped his patrol car 20 feet from the damaged SUV and remained behind the wheel long enough to study the scene through the rain. Marcus stood beside the passenger door with both hands visible, soaked through and watching the rear seat where Angela was trying to calm Sophie. Tyler remained inside with his phone still recording. Derek had already received the official dispatch about a possible road incident, but the private call that followed had changed the way he approached it. The caller had identified the black pickup and told him the driver was connected to Deputy Chief Alan Brooks. "Keep the report simple," the voice had said. "Do not let this turn into something larger." Derek stepped out beneath the flashing lights and adjusted his rain jacket. He did not bring the medical kit from the trunk. He did not ask whether anyone was injured. His first look moved from Marcus to the expensive SUV, then back to Marcus again. "Who was driving?" he asked. Marcus pointed toward the rear seat. "I was. My daughter is trapped, and her breathing is getting worse. We need emergency medical services and a rescue unit." Derek glanced at Sophie for less than a second. "License and registration." Marcus stared at him, uncertain whether the officer had heard correctly. "The documents are inside, but my daughter needs help first." Derek stepped closer. "I asked for your license and registration." Angela looked through the open passenger door. "Officer, please." She cannot free herself from the belt. Derek lifted one hand without looking at her. "Ma'am, let me handle one thing at a time." The words were polite on the surface, but the indifference beneath them was unmistakable. Imagine standing in cold rain while your child calls for help, only to realize the person wearing the badge has already decided that your explanation matters less than his suspicion. Marcus kept his voice controlled. "We reported a black pickup truck. My son recorded the plate. That vehicle forced us off the road and left the scene." At the mention of the pickup, something changed in Derek's expression. It lasted only a moment, a tightening around the eyes, but Marcus saw it. Derek looked toward Tyler's phone. "You recorded it?" Tyler nodded. "Yes, sir. I have the truck and part of the plate." Derek turned back to Marcus. "We will get to that. First, I need to establish whether this vehicle belongs to you." Marcus held his gaze. "Why would that be your priority?" Derek looked over the SUV again. "Because expensive vehicles are reported stolen every day." Rain ran from Marcus's forehead as the meaning settled between them. Angela heard it too. So did Tyler. Derek had arrived at a crash involving a frightened black family and chosen to investigate them before helping them. Marcus slowly reached into his jacket for his wallet. The sealed appointment letter shifted inside the pocket beside it, but he left it there. He handed over his driver's license without mentioning the title that would be announced the next morning. Derek studied the card, then walked toward his patrol car. Instead of requesting emergency rescue, he entered Marcus's name into the computer and lowered his voice into his personal phone. "I found the family," he said. "The boy has a recording." Marcus watched from several feet away. The patrol car door blocked most of Derek's movements, but not the small red light on his body camera as it suddenly went dark. Inside the SUV, Sophie called for her father again. Marcus turned toward her, then back toward the officer who had just disabled the one device meant to preserve the truth. In that moment, he understood that Derek was not merely delaying help. He was protecting someone. Marcus said nothing about the darkened body camera. Not yet. He had spent too many years investigating misconduct to interrupt a mistake while it was still revealing itself. Instead, he watched Derek's hands, his posture, the angle of his phone, and the hesitation that appeared whenever the black pickup was mentioned. Every detail mattered. Every pause told a story. Inside the SUV, Angela kept one arm around Sophie while trying to ease the pressure of the locked seat belt. Tyler held his phone low near his chest, recording through the open door without drawing attention to himself. Marcus moved closer to the vehicle, but Derek stepped away from the patrol car and blocked his path. "Stay where you are," Derek said. "My daughter is frightened," Marcus replied. "I am going to speak to her." Derek glanced toward the back seat, then at Tyler's phone. "Tell your son to stop recording." Tyler's grip tightened. Marcus did not look away from Derek. He is standing on public property and documenting what is happening to his family. Derek's jaw hardened. "I am giving a lawful instruction." "Then explain the law he is violating." The question was calm, almost quiet, but it changed the space between them. Derek had expected fear, confusion, perhaps anger. He had not expected precision. For the first time, he studied Marcus more carefully. The soaked dress shirt, the measured voice, the way he used the language of policy without hesitation. "What do you do for a living?" Derek asked. Marcus answered without offering more than necessary. "I work in public service." Derek gave a short, dismissive laugh. That could mean anything. He returned Marcus's license, but kept the registration card. Then he opened the door of the SUV and reached toward the center console. Angela immediately turned. "What are you doing?" "Looking for proof this vehicle belongs to him." "The registration is already in your hand," Marcus said. Derek ignored him. His attention shifted to the leather document case resting near the passenger seat. He pulled it free and opened the outer flap. The sealed appointment letter slid onto the wet pavement, landing face down near the patrol car tire. The city emblem flashed under the rotating lights before rainwater began darkening the paper. Derek looked at it, then nudged it aside with his boot as though it were meaningless. "People carry all kinds of documents," he said. Marcus looked down at the envelope. He did not bend to retrieve it. The act itself told him more than the words. Derek did not want information. He wanted control. Behind them, Sophie's breathing became quicker. Angela called Marcus's name, and the restraint in her voice finally began to break. "She is getting worse." Marcus turned toward the patrol car. "Dispatch a rescue unit now." Derek crossed his arms. "I already requested assistance." Marcus glanced at the silent radio inside the patrol car. No confirmation had sounded. No medical unit had answered. "No, you did not." Derek's face changed. "Are you accusing me of lying?" Marcus looked at the dark body camera, then at the phone still in Derek's hand. "I am observing that your camera is off, your radio has been quiet, and you have not issued an alert for the vehicle that caused this crash." For a moment, only the rain spoke. Tyler's phone continued recording. Angela continued calming Sophie. Derek stepped closer and lowered his voice. "You need to be very careful about how you speak to an officer." Marcus held his gaze. "And you need to be very careful about what you choose to ignore." Derek looked toward Tyler again. This time, the concern in his expression was impossible to hide. "Give me the phone," he said. Tyler did not move. Marcus stepped slightly between them. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just enough to make one thing clear. Whatever Derek was trying to protect, he would not take the truth from his son. Sophie's voice came from inside the SUV, quieter than before. "Dad, I cannot catch my breath." The words changed everything. Marcus turned toward the rear door, and Angela's expression told him the situation could no longer wait. She had worked in emergency medicine long enough to recognize the signs of panic becoming something more serious. "Marcus, we need that belt released now," she said. Derek moved in front of him. "Stay where I told you to stand." Marcus kept his eyes on Sophie. "My daughter needs immediate assistance. A unit is on the way." "You never called one." Derek's hand moved toward the radio clipped to his shoulder, but he did not press it. The hesitation lasted less than a second. Marcus saw it. Tyler's camera saw it too. Rain struck the roof of the SUV and gathered along the broken edge of the guardrail. The hazard lights continued their patient rhythm, blinking on, blinking off, as though counting the seconds Derek had already wasted. Angela tried once more to loosen the belt, but the locking mechanism would not release. Sophie closed her eyes and whispered that she was scared. Marcus stepped forward. Derek raised one hand. "Do not move." Marcus continued. Derek caught his arm. Angela shouted his name. Tyler moved closer with the phone still recording. Everything happened quickly, but Marcus remained controlled. "Release me," he said. "I am going to my daughter." Derek positioned himself between Marcus and the SUV. "You are interfering with an investigation." Marcus looked past him toward Sophie. "There is no investigation more important than a child who cannot breathe." Derek reached for his handcuffs. The metal opened with a sharp click that seemed impossibly loud beneath the rain. Tyler stared at him. "He is trying to help my sister." Derek pointed toward the patrol car. "Step back and put the phone away." Tyler did neither. His hands trembled, but the camera remained aimed at the officer. "You never called an ambulance," he said. "I recorded everything." The confidence disappeared from Derek's face, replaced by something colder. "Give me the phone." Marcus stepped between Derek and his son. He did not raise his voice. He did not make a threatening movement. He simply placed himself where a father would always stand when someone reached toward his child. Derek secured one cuff around Marcus's wrist and guided him toward the patrol car. Marcus did not resist, but his eyes never left the SUV. "Angela," he called, "keep Sophie talking." "Tyler, do not stop recording." Derek brought Marcus beside the hood and reached for his other wrist. "You do not give orders here." Marcus turned his head slightly. "Neither do you, when your orders endanger a child." In the distance, another set of emergency lights appeared through the rain. They were moving faster than Derek's patrol car had. A passing driver had witnessed the crash, heard Angela calling for medical help, and contacted emergency services independently. Derek did not know that. He only knew that his time was running out. He tightened his hold on the open cuff and glanced toward Tyler's phone. Then a second patrol vehicle stopped behind them, followed by a rescue truck and an ambulance. Sergeant Rebecca Hayes stepped into the rain, took one look at the damaged SUV, and began issuing instructions before her door had fully closed. "Rescue team to the child. Medical personnel to the passenger side." Then she saw Marcus beside Derek's car. She stopped. Recognition crossed her face. Derek mistook her silence for uncertainty. "Sergeant, I have the driver detained for refusing instructions." Rebecca walked toward them, her expression hardening with every step. "Take those handcuffs off him," she said. Derek frowned. "You do not understand what happened." Rebecca looked directly at Marcus, then back at Derek. "I understand exactly who you just detained. Take them off. Right now." "The man you detained is Marcus Coleman," Rebecca said, each word measured against the rain. Derek stared at her, still holding the open handcuff as if the metal might somehow explain what he had done. "I heard the name," he replied. "That does not change the fact that he refused instructions." Rebecca stepped closer. "It changes everything you should have understood before you touched those cuffs." The rescue crew moved past them toward the SUV, carrying medical equipment and speaking in calm, practiced voices. Angela immediately shifted aside so they could reach Sophie. Tyler remained near the roadside, his phone still raised, capturing Derek's face as certainty began to collapse into confusion. Rebecca looked at Marcus with a respect Derek had never shown him. "Commissioner Coleman, are you injured?" Marcus did not answer the question. His attention stayed on the rescue workers surrounding the rear passenger door. "Help my daughter first." Rebecca turned and repeated the order to the team, though they were already working. Then she faced Derek again. "Remove the handcuff." Derek finally released Marcus's wrist. The sound was small, almost insignificant, but everyone near the patrol car heard it. Marcus stepped away without rubbing his arm or demanding an apology. He walked directly toward the SUV and stopped beside Angela. One of the rescue workers explained that Sophie's seat belt had locked after the vehicle came to rest at an angle. They were stabilizing the door and would free her carefully. Marcus lowered himself near the window. "Sophie, it is Dad. I am right here." Her eyes opened. "Are you okay?" she asked. The question nearly broke the composure he had maintained all night. She was the one trapped inside the vehicle, yet she was worried about him. Marcus forced a reassuring smile. "I am fine. You are doing exactly what you need to do. Keep listening to Mom." Behind him, Derek stood motionless beside the patrol car. He looked toward the rain-soaked appointment letter near the tire, then bent and picked it up. The city seal was visible across the front, along with Marcus Coleman's full name and the words "Office of the Police Commissioner." Derek read the first line twice. The document confirmed what Rebecca had told him. Marcus was not merely a senior official visiting Ashford. He was the man who would take command of the department in less than 12 hours. Derek walked toward Rebecca and lowered his voice. "Nobody told me he was arriving tonight." Rebecca looked at him with open disbelief. You should not need a warning to help a family after a crash. Derek glanced toward Tyler. The situation was unclear. A child was asking for medical assistance, Rebecca said. What part of that was unclear? Derek had no answer. Marcus heard the exchange, but did not turn around. He watched as the rescue crew released the locked belt and helped Sophie into the care of the medical team. Angela stayed beside her while Tyler moved closer, still holding the phone. Only when Sophie was safely placed inside the ambulance did Marcus face Derek again. The road had gone strangely quiet. Even the rain seemed softer. Derek opened his mouth, perhaps to explain, perhaps to apologize, but Marcus raised one hand. Before you say anything, turn your body camera back on. Derek looked down at the dark device attached to his uniform. Rebecca followed his gaze. Her expression changed immediately. Why is your camera off? Derek hesitated. That hesitation told Marcus everything. Turn it on, Marcus repeated. Derek pressed the control, and the small red light returned. Marcus looked directly into the lens. Officer Derek Walsh arrived at this scene and failed to request timely medical assistance. He ignored information about a fleeing vehicle, attempted to take a witness recording, and disabled his body camera during the encounter. Derek's face tightened. Commissioner, I can explain. Marcus remained calm. You will have that opportunity. But not here, and not before every record connected to this call is secured. Rebecca reached for her radio. Marcus continued. Preserve the dispatch audio, vehicle computer logs, personal call records made during the stop, and every available camera within 1 mile of this location. Derek looked toward Tyler's phone. For the first time, he understood that the title was not the most dangerous thing about Marcus Coleman. The evidence was. By sunrise, the rain had moved east, leaving Ashford beneath a pale gray sky and a silence that felt temporary. Sophie had been examined at the hospital and was resting beside Angela, tired but safe. Tyler sat near the window with his phone connected to a charging cable, watching the same recording again and again. Marcus stood in the hallway speaking with Rebecca, who had already secured the dispatch audio, Derek's vehicle computer, and the body camera data. The first discovery came from the emergency call log. Derek had never requested a rescue unit. He had marked the scene as a routine vehicle check even after hearing that a child was trapped. The second discovery was worse. 3 minutes before Derek arrived, he had received a call from a number registered to Deputy Chief Alan Brooks. Rebecca placed the printed record on a small table between them. Brooks called him directly, she said. Marcus studied the timestamps. And the black pickup? Registered to Evan Brooks. His son. The room seemed to grow colder. Tyler looked up from his phone. That is the name on the truck registration? Rebecca nodded. Tyler unlocked the recording and moved to the clearest frame. The pickup's rear plate appeared for less than a second beneath a streetlight, but the final characters matched. Marcus felt no satisfaction, only clarity. Derek had not arrived confused. He had arrived with a purpose. He needed to delay the report, discredit the family, and give Evan Brooks enough time to disappear. By mid-morning, the evidence began connecting itself. Traffic cameras showed the pickup leaving the city limits 26 minutes after the crash. A gas station camera captured Evan Brooks entering the store with a passenger, looking nervous and repeatedly checking his phone. Derek's patrol computer showed that he had searched Marcus's name, but never entered the fleeing vehicle's plate into the system. Then investigators recovered a deleted message from Derek's department phone. Keep them there. Make it look uncertain. I will handle the rest. The message came from Alan Brooks. Rebecca read it twice before placing the phone on the table. This is not just misconduct, she said. This is coordination. Marcus looked through the glass toward Sophie's room. Then we follow it wherever it leads. The inquiry widened before noon. Internal records revealed that Derek had disabled his body camera during 7 previous encounters. In 5 of those cases, black drivers had reported being ignored, threatened with unnecessary charges, or blamed for incidents they had called the police to report. Each complaint had been reduced, delayed, or closed without a full review. Every file passed through Alan Brooks's office. One complaint included a note from a young patrol officer who had challenged the decision. 2 weeks later, that officer had been transferred to an overnight assignment across the city. Another report contained missing dispatch audio. A third had been rewritten after submission. What appeared to be one officer's prejudice was part of something more disciplined and more dangerous. a system that protected favored people, buried inconvenient evidence, and counted on victims having too little influence to fight back. Derek was ordered to appear before professional standards. Alan Brooks was placed on administrative leave while investigators secured his office. Evan Brooks was located at a relative's home outside the county and brought in for questioning. Still, Marcus refused every suggestion that he make an immediate public statement. "Not until the evidence is complete," he said. "This cannot become a story about my title. It has to remain a story about what they did." Hours later, Derek sat alone in an interview room as the evidence was placed before him one piece at a time. The call log, the deleted message, Tyler's video, the silent body camera, the missing rescue request. With each item, his explanations became shorter. Finally, he looked through the glass and saw Marcus standing on the other side. Derek had believed the greatest danger was discovering that the black father he dismissed had power. He was wrong. The real danger was that Marcus had patience, the family had proof, and the truth had finally found a door the department could no longer close. 3 weeks later, the city council chamber was filled before sunrise, not with celebration alone, but with the weight of everything Ashford had been forced to confront. Marcus Coleman stood behind the podium in a dark navy suit while Angela, Tyler, and Sophie watched from the front row. Sophie had recovered fully, though she still reached for her father's hand whenever patrol lights appeared behind their car. Tyler had become quieter since the crash, but he carried himself differently now. He understood that recording the truth had protected more than his own family. It had opened files that had remained closed for years. Officer Derek Walsh had been suspended pending formal disciplinary proceedings, and Deputy Chief Alan Brooks had resigned after investigators confirmed that he had interfered with reports to protect his son. Evan Brooks faced charges connected to leaving the scene and attempting to avoid responsibility. The investigation also reopened 7 complaints that had once been dismissed. Families who had been told there was not enough evidence were contacted again. Officers who had been pressured into silence were invited to speak without fear of retaliation. The department that Marcus inherited was no longer able to pretend the problem had begun on one rainy road. It had simply become visible there. Before the ceremony, Derek requested a private meeting. Marcus agreed, not because Derek deserved comfort, but because accountability required listening as carefully as judgment. They met in a quiet conference room, with Rebecca present outside the door. Derek looked older than he had at the roadside. Without the uniform, he seemed smaller, stripped of the certainty that had once carried every word. "Are you going to destroy my life?" he asked. Marcus remained standing. "No." Derek looked up, surprised. Marcus continued, "You made decisions. Those decisions created consequences. My responsibility is not to destroy you. It is to make sure you cannot hide from what you chose." Derek lowered his eyes. "I thought Brooks would protect me." "He did," Marcus said. "That was part of the problem." Silence settled between them. Then Derek asked the question Marcus had expected. "Would any of this have happened if you were not the commissioner?" Marcus looked through the window, toward the chamber where families were gathering. "That is exactly why it has to change. My daughter received help because someone finally recognized my name. The next child may not have a father with a title. That child still deserves the same urgency." Derek had no answer. Marcus left him with the truth and returned to the ceremony. When he stepped to the podium, the room rose, but Marcus raised one hand and asked everyone to sit. "I am not beginning today by speaking about authority," he said. "I am beginning with duty." He described the reforms that would take effect immediately. Independent review of body camera interruptions, automatic preservation of emergency call records, renewed investigation of unresolved complaints, protection for officers who reported misconduct, and a policy requiring medical needs to be addressed before questions of status or property whenever safety allowed. Then Marcus looked toward Sophie. "On the night my family entered this city, my daughter did not need a commissioner. She needed a police officer who remembered why the badge existed." His voice remained calm, but the chamber was completely still. A badge does not grant the power to decide whose fear is real, whose pain deserves attention, or whose voice can be ignored. It creates an obligation to serve before judging. Rebecca stood near the back wall, listening as officers across the room lowered their eyes. Some felt shame. Others felt relief. A few understood that the culture they had accepted was ending. Marcus placed both hands on the podium. Justice is not proven by how we treat the powerful after learning their names. It is proven by how we treat ordinary people before we know anything about them. That morning, Ashford did not simply receive a new police commissioner. It received a warning and a promise. Derek had worn a badge and believed it allowed him to choose who deserved help. Marcus had worn no uniform on that rainy road. Yet he reminded the entire city what service, dignity, and justice were supposed to mean.